Welcome to the Credit Clubhouse, where we take a weekly dive into the world of credit markets, alternative finance, and everything in between. Don't forget to follow the show, rate us, write a review, and share with friends. We're always open to guest or show ideas, so please feel free to reach out anytime. Just todd.anderson@dealcatalyst.io. I encourage you to check out the remainder of Deal Catalyst's 2026 calendar, including ABF 2026, Fund Finance West moving to Vegas for the first time, and GPLP Secondaries, which is a new addition to the schedule. Listeners can get up to 10% off any ticket to any conference by using the promo code CREDIT at checkout. And now, on to our next episode. This episode is brought to you by CARDO AI, the operating system for asset-based finance and private credit. These markets still run on spreadsheets and siloed systems. CARDO AI brings everything into one system. The data, the structuring, the borrowing bases and waterfalls, the cash flow modeling and simulations, and the investor reporting. That's front office to back office, all in one place. Today, more than 700 facilities and $150 billion run on CARDO AI. The world's most sophisticated investors and lenders use CARDO AI, equipping their teams with a level of control and intelligence that legacy tools simply cannot match. See it for yourself. Talk to the experts at cardoai.com. Welcome back to the latest episode of the Credit Clubhouse. As always, I'm your host, Todd Anderson, head of content and programming at Deal Catalyst. Joining me today are Rory Smith, founder, and James Strode, senior associate at Brickfield Recruitment. Guys, it's really great to see you again, so thank you for taking the time, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Pleasure to meet you, Todd. Thanks for the invite.
Thanks, Todd.
Of course. So, obviously, fund finance has evolved from what was probably thought of once as a niche product into arguably the fastest growing area of the private markets. So, from your perspective, kind of what's been that biggest change over the past 5 years as the growth has obviously exploded?
Yeah, sure. I'll take this one, Todd. Thanks for the, as mentioned, thanks for the invite. As you're aware, of course, we are the exclusive fund finance recruiters in this space. So we've been around for about 8 to 10 years or so, and have seen the significant development in the space, and new players that are coming into the space, and also what that means to the market today. I think, sort of answering that question, I think it's more about that the product has become a toolkit for these funds, and a must-have product that has evolved. And with that, new products have evolved around fund financing as well. And of course, we're at a very interesting intersection with that. Now, from our perspective, we service the global fund finance market, and we service the whole ecosystem within that market. So we're seeing it from a funds perspective and demand from that perspective. We're seeing it from a legal perspective and the servicing and new clients that they're taking on, the lenders coming into the space, the alternative lenders as well, non-bank lenders, and then you've got the advisories which have been popping up as well, and then and the list goes on. So I think simply the reason for the demand and growth has just been that the product has become a must-have product, and it's becoming uh, more mainstream and more well known, and just people want to get a piece of the pie. So you've got funds jumping in that need it now. You've got law firms that want a piece of the pie. You've got lenders that want to, help with that as well. So it's just simply a product that's growing, that's useful, and now being part of the toolkit as mentioned.
This episode is brought to you by CARDO AI, the operating system for asset-based finance and private credit. These markets still run on spreadsheets and siloed systems. CARDO AI brings everything into one system. The data, the structuring, the borrowing bases and waterfalls, the cash flow modeling and simulations, and the investor reporting. That's front office to back office, all in one place. Today, more than 700 facilities and $150 billion run on CARDO AI. The world's most sophisticated investors and lenders use CARDO AI, equipping their teams with a level of control and intelligence that legacy tools simply cannot match. See it for yourself. Talk to the experts at cardoai.com. The amount of folks that you guys talk with, both at the firms of the different types that you've referenced, obviously, and then obviously candidates, for some of these positions in the space, where would you say kind of the mood is? And part of the reason I ask it is, private markets itself has had a bit of an up and down year. Obviously, there was, news items around redemptions and everything. And so just kind of curious where the fund finance mood is as of today.
James, I'll let you take that one if you like.
Thanks. Todd, I would say it's super positive fund finance at the moment in terms of the messaging, the deal flow that lenders are seeing and so forth. There's real optimism in the market. And yes, obviously, just like every other private market, there are those headwinds, right, from a macroeconomic level. But at the moment, conversations that we're having seem really positive and seem as though those headwinds aren't holding us and the industry back at the moment. What I would say from a recruitment perspective in terms of the mood, again, it's robust, it's positive. Demand is outweighing supply of fund finance talent at the minute. And that's creating real competition across those platforms for the best talent, for the best amount of work that can be produced and results that can be driven. So, all in all, this first half of the year has been really positive, and imagine that continues through to the end of this year as well.
Yeah, you obviously referenced the supply demand dynamic there, and that seemingly is maybe one of the constraints on the industry, given the fast-paced nature of the growth and maybe the talent that hasn't yet caught up with that growth. What is kind of the biggest challenge in finding experienced professionals for this space, as we sit here today?
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head, Todd. The industry's grown faster than the talent pool, I would say. And by that, I mean not only the size of the industry from a numerical perspective, but also just the size of the industry through new entrants into the ecosystem. Means that the individuals um, just haven't necessarily been there to grow with the industry from day one. So I take an example of your traditional lenders in this asset class. They are hiring from that same limited group that's always been there. Where we've got sort of more positive or progressive candidates are definitely with the newer entrants and the more sophisticated products. So whether that's on the alternative space, whether that's with funds directly, it's all about the talent coming there, servicing the needs. And ultimately, yeah, there are a few pain points that I'm sure we'll dive into further on in this conversation. But in short, there's a lot of competing verticals within this industry, lenders, funds. How do you have all that talent, and how do you take and how do you replace that talent? So, I mean, it's really interesting as far as the growth goes, and that issue around where do we get the talent from. Rory, anything to add?
No, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, realistically, what's happened over the last 3 years is you have had new entrances come into this ecosystem from all different angles, like as mentioned, advisory lenders, non-bank lenders. They are all similar skill set. And so now instead of back in the day, it was lenders competing with lenders for the same talent. Now you have funds, lenders, advisory, and everything around that. I mean, technology companies also are taking on um, lenders that have sales product knowledge and bringing them in as well. So it's simply the demand has grown, the pool has stayed the same. And also in addition to that, you've got as James alluded to as well, more sophisticated products that are coming out to the market from these new lenders or traditional lenders that have upscaled. But 80% of the market, I'm throwing that out there, is still subline. So you've also got
Yeah.
a skill set gap and to fill those new products that are becoming in demand. So you're yeah, you're sort of you got a small pool, but you're really just shopping around at the top of that pool of talent as well. Now, of course, that's where we come into play to help navigate that. And of course, it's also about your knowledge in the market, how long you've been here, how big is your network and your pool. These new entrances, they're coming into it blind. They don't know reputation, they don't know what these individuals do, so on and so forth. So, I mean, their pool is very small.
Where is the, to kind of, I guess double down on this point, where is the larger pool that people maybe can tap into? Is it other areas of finance, maybe the private credit or structured credit markets where maybe you thought, all right, traditionally I'll stay in those areas. Are they now jumping into fund finance? You referenced technology companies, Rory. So where is the maybe here's the fund finance pool. It's kind of defined. It's a bit smaller. If you broaden out beyond fund finance, where is the bigger pool and where are firms kind of looking to find talent?
Yeah, I mean, leverage finance is quite a good transferable skill set into the space. What we're what we're finding is happening is that it's the attitude that the organization brings as well to the search. You've got organizations that say, "Hey, listen, we just want someone who we can train, who we can build up, and we will get them up to speed." That's
Hmm.
fine. You can bring anyone pretty much from anywhere in order to do that
Yeah.
to an extent, depending on the product itself. But then you've also got individuals that are plug and play, and that's what the institutions want because they're so busy. That's really where we play. That's our market. We play in
Yeah.
the plug and play. We work in that pool where we deliver individuals that have fund finance experience. Now, you can always go get someone from anywhere else, but then you've got to do that upskilling and so on and so forth. So there is a wider pool, but it depends on how much time and resources do you want to spend to get them up to speed when realistically, if you target the right pool, you're already, you're starting off from day one, and so-called taking advantage of that hire.
Can I also just jump
Yeah.
in there, guys, and just from a legal perspective, just add my 2 cents into, I guess, challenges that firms are facing, but also sort of where the demand is. Um, we've seen a hell of a lot of firms jump into fund finance, set up practice groups to try and make inroads into the market, and therefore, from a legal perspective, yeah, Rory's absolutely spot on again about plug and play. But it's also at the senior end at the minute. We're seeing a lot of demand for partners with a book of business, a good Rolodex in there to come over and move from platform A to platform B and really build out the name and the brand there. Um, but again, that's not easy with all the market dynamics going on at the moment. Um, but legal are definitely making a push for it, and I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of the moves in the industry, sort of in this first half of 2026. So it is absolutely being done.
Just a quick question on that. Like you see these either groups moving or individuals moving law firm to law firm, or does that disrupt the industry? Is that healthy? Like, how does that dynamic play out? Because sometimes, there's at least from my seat, I presume maybe a lender or a GP might be comfortable with a certain style of firm or whoever they're working with. And then if they move to another firm, maybe that doesn't fit or they have to change or like, so how much is disrupted with some of these changes within how the market operates itself?
Yes, I mean, it's a disruption. You move from one law firm to another law firm, you've got to move your clients over with it. I mean, the client himself, I'm sure, would rather you stay where you're at because it's just a lot simpler and they know business as it runs. But that's where it comes down to the value of that move in itself. And that's where a lot of US law firms are really playing on this, is it's about the portability, right? Sure, everyone knows, every lawyer knows it's a hassle to move across, but there is an upside for the team that they're moving across, from that team dynamic, or the platform pricing, whatever that could be, that could offer more for their clients. So it's a bit of a two-way street. Sometimes there is that advantage for the team itself or for the client. There are going to be clients that are going to stay put, because they're more deeper ingrained into that law firm that they're leaving from and use it for other services. But that's when it comes down to those relationships. And fund finance, as we know, is a growing market. There's been a certain few people that have been in the top for a long time, who have held a lot of those strong relationships. So, and it is a very relationship-based business, right? Very
Yeah.
much so. So, for those individuals that have been able to grow great practices, likely those do move over with them over time. But again, it's over time and it's about timing in this market as well, because, you know, one week this person or that firm might not be of interest, but then 6 months later down the line, circumstances have changed. So it's about being time and being engaged, and that's what we do. We're just constantly engaged with the market. So yeah, it's it's not ideal for the client, but sometimes there's benefits too.
Have the hiring standards evolved as the market has evolved, the last few years, and kind of what might separate a firm that's, been really good at attracting top talent from maybe those that aren't as good? Like, is there any particular characteristics there?
Um, have the standards changed? I wouldn't say the standards have changed, no. I would say because ultimately, it really comes down to culture, I think is
Okay.
where we're at the moment. Does this individual that we're looking to hire, would they fit within our culture? Are they quick learners? Are they nice to work with, right? Because ultimately the fund finance industry doesn't have a row of people standing outside waiting for that role. There's just they don't they the hiring manager can't be too picky in wanting to get exactly what they're looking for, because there's always going to be hurdles. Either the hiring manager's compensation isn't up to scratch of whatever they're looking for, or the firm's brand or the balance sheet that they're looking to lend out, from a lending perspective, isn't right. The market and tier where they sit within the market. So there's so many different factors in play, and because the market's somewhat small, there's a certain number of people that hold a lot of the so-called, I wouldn't use the word power, but the skill set within the space, and they're in high demand, which ultimately means they're priced out. So no, hiring standards haven't changed. People have to be creative, they have to adapt, and they have to realize what the market is like. And that is where, again, we come into play and educate them on that before they start their process, because we've come across a lot of firms that are just being slightly delusional when they go out to the market and don't actually know what the market is like.
Yeah, I would say just building on that, and Rory and I have released recently as well, actually, around the expectation gap. I would say that has evolved over the last few years. As Rory's alluded to, I don't want to go over the same points again, but it's very much, where do you sit in a vastly growing industry? Are you at the top tier? Are you middle market? Where are you? And how does that play with what you require? And where is reality? And ultimately,
Yeah.
the standards haven't changed, but it's just what we call the expectation gap. And hey, that's where we can set the scene at the beginning of any process to really close that expectation gap and provide the client the sort of reality of where the market is, where they're operating against others, and also with the candidates when we're exploring opportunities.
One point I wanted to follow up with that, you obviously referenced before, Rory, when it was, development versus plug and play and the pool of candidates. It feels like there or will come to a point at which the pool of candidates is too small And someone's going to have to say, hey, there needs to be a development piece to this puzzle, because then the candidate pool is going to be dry, and we'll be putting in people in seats that just don't make any sense. As this market continues to grow, I mean, are there firms that are like, hey, we need to start the development thing now, or is the competitive juices too much where they can't take on that? Like, how do you see that dynamic continuing to play out? Because I see it as the pool of candidates might end up being too small for where the market's going if someone doesn't start training some of these folks on some of these products.
Yeah, I think law firms are the first to see this, or at least make steps into this. I mean, you've got firms that have wider and larger platforms around fund finance, so it means they've got more support from senior associates or so on and so forth to train. So the partner's somewhat removed from that training aspect. Whereas if you've got a fund finance team of, let's say, 3 or 4 people, everyone's a little bit pulled onto client work. Whereas if you've got a larger team, they can slowly introduce and train. And we have been seeing that over the last few years. New trainees coming in, been doing seats, different seats around the law firms, and then going into the fund financing and being broadened through that way. It's really, the issue lies, it's not the sort of the 0 to 2 year problem. It's the 5 to 10 year issue, is
Yeah.
where, because that is someone retraining themselves and moving from a leverage finance lawyer into a fund finance lawyer without knowing what fund finance is or being part of that ecosystem or industry in the first place. So that's where the issue lies. So it's got time is what it's going to take for us to flush through the system. And of course, a new wave of partners as well coming through. But we're 5 years away from that, at least. But no, people have been making their move, especially in the legal space, because they've just been waiting around for too long, hoping that someone's going to come through. And what happens is musical chairs. By the time they've hired one person, someone else is left to go to another platform, to somewhere else. So they have to keep replenishing it themselves because they've got the training mechanisms in place.
Before we jump into the new content initiative that you guys have coming, I did want to ask: is there any one piece or what advice do you give to firms that are looking to secure the best talent before their competitors? I mean, is it that culture piece that you had referenced before is kind of the sweet spot? What do you tell folks that come to you?
I'll put my 2 cents in here, and I'm sure James has got something to add. But mine would my it's about, again, expectations. Get in there before you actually go to market, and a lot of law firms or institutions, they all have their preferred recruiter who they services majority of practices within an institution. Now they have no understanding of fund finance, so they can't actually give the client any in-depth knowledge of how best to position this opportunity for the market. So first and foremost, I think it's about getting a download of exactly what it is that you're offering and going to bring to market, and how is the best way to communicate that to the market, and the narrative and timing as well. So it's about the narrative, and let's match up all the pieces first before you go to market, and you have to claw back because you don't want to burn potential candidates by
Yeah.
by communicating the wrong information. So that's very important in that respect. And then that comes down to the likes of, have we mentioned, cultural fit, compensation fit, narrative fit, um, and growth. Growth is a very important part in this market. No one in fund finance wants to feel stale. They want to go. Sometimes it
Yeah.
overrides compensation. Sometimes it overrides a lot. Where am I going to be in 3, 4 years' time? Where is this practice going to be in 3 years, 4 times? Are they invested? Are they growing? Are they meaningful within the space, or do they just want to be seen to have the so-called service to provide their clients so they don't go elsewhere? So that, I think, growth and the narrative is very, very important to attract talent. And then, of course, the other stuff are the finer details of what is your budget. Realistically, this is what you're going to expect to get for it. If you want to get the best, this is what you're going to need, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, Rory's covered a lot there, and I would agree with all of it. One of the things I would add, and it's a sort of a practicality point, is having a smooth hiring process. This is something that you shouldn't take for granted, or you shouldn't be making up as you go along. Processes can't go on for 2, 3 months indefinitely.
Yeah.
We of course appreciate that due diligence has to be done, and of course you have to meet, across different teams, sectors, verticals of whatever firm you're applying to or running the process for. But the fund finance market is moving at a pace where in 2 or 3 months' time, that candidate could quite easily see one or two roles that are just as appealing, have the same sort of strength around narrative and compensation, and with quick execution, you can lose, you can lose out on talent if you're not in the right place at the right time, essentially. So, it's a practical, smooth hiring process, um, not too long, not too delayed, counts for a lot as well.
So tell us a bit more about this new content initiative you guys have coming out. Why do you think the market needs it? And is this part of just the market kind of taking the next step and getting maybe more sophisticated? You guys are a sophisticated recruitment firm, content pieces now. It feels like the market's really forming into itself in a lot of different ways, at least, from my perspective.
Yeah, Todd, I would say that the fund finance market or industry has matured beyond a lot of people's comprehensions or dreams 10, 15, 20 years ago. And there's not been a dedicated publication exclusively to fund finance and that whole ecosystem. Um, so it's definitely the right time now for Brickfield to be launching Inside Fund Finance, the trade journal for the fund finance industry, where we're highlighting trends, innovation, where we're talking about the movement within the market, where we're taking a recap and a look back at the events that have gone past, and what events are coming into sort of the next 6 months of the calendar. Essentially, inside fund finance, we hope and expect to become a industry hub, somewhere where participants can come and focus, get what they need, build that knowledge, and keep moving the industry forward in a coherent, joined up manner. But continue the innovation, which has been a trend throughout the industry as a whole.
I mean, do you think it helps build, a sense of community in the industry when you have a dedicated publication, trade journal? Because it feels like maybe Bloomberg covers something, or the FT, or something like that, but having a voice dedicated to it, does that help kind of build that camaraderie in some sense?
Yeah, hugely. That continual voice, a sort of a 360 view of the whole ecosystem, um, and I think Brickfield's position within the market, we're uniquely, placed to be able to carry this out. I'm sure a lot of your viewers will know our background around publishing and marketing, before creation of Brickfield, but in our current day jobs as well, where we do speak to the lenders and we speak to the funds and asset managers, private practice lawyers, and all the other service providers around the fund finance ecosystem. We understand their concerns or their thoughts around the market, developments, trends, what's going on. And we sort of play that central role within Inside Fund Finance to curate this content and bring this out. So absolutely, I think it will only continue to help build that sense of community. And as I mentioned in my previous answer as well, just that continuation of innovation and knowledge building throughout, from juniors right through to seniors.
And just for people listening, when can we expect it? Is there a launch date, just so everyone can kind of keep a lookout on their emails, or take a look at your website?
Well, what I'd say about that is we're hoping for the inaugural edition to be launched in November time, and fully expect that timeline to be met as well. You can hold me to that. You'll see a lot around social media once we do release it. It will be in print as well, so it will be distributed globally to the market as well. So I'm sure it will be landing on desks. I'm sure it will be picked up at conferences and digital as well. So for a few weeks at least, you won't be able to escape the hype.
So if we're thinking about those looking at a long-term career in the fund finance market, what would you say are the skills, knowing where you guys sit, are most valuable? I know they probably range from different types of players in the market, from law firm to GP or non-bank lender. But is flexibility the biggest thing? Like, or you can feel free to break it down maybe by type of participant in the industry. I'm just kind of curious, as fund finance now seemingly is a career path that someone would want to take on. What's most valuable?
Yeah, I mean, good question in itself. I mean, it all depends on exactly the role, as you allude to, that you're looking to fill. I mean, I think personality, confidence, and all that stuff is very important. How you present yourself, how you carry yourself in this industry, because it's a small industry for the time being, to an extent. Everyone has to feel comfortable around you, and you need to be able to carry that. You've also got some very technical related roles, which really, therefore, you're not as client facing, so maybe that doesn't matter as much, but also for your colleagues, you need to be around that. And then you've just got your typical networking skills and personable skills and so on and so forth. So a lot of soft skills in there that you need. I don't think that's any different to any other industry that's already been established in the legal or leverage finance industry, let's just say, or securitization industry. You need the same set of skill sets to an extent, or same sort of you got to attack it the same way. You just ultimately need to fundamentally focus on fund financing. Obviously, building your skill set beyond sublines is hugely important. So anyone coming new into this market, we produce a very good publication called The Working Guide to Fund Finance,
I have a
which
copy of it, and I will attest to its
yeah, yeah,
quality. That's for sure.
you're not the only one. You're not the only one, Todd. I'd say 90% of the market have that on their desk at the moment, which was the objective. The
Yeah.
objective there was to educate individuals and give them that resource about how to structure deals, how to do the deals, how to be ready, and what do these deals look like. So less from the trends and developments. It's more about the 101 into fund finance. So that's been a great resource there. So it's just about getting yourself up to speed and looking at the broader market, the wider market, rather than 5 years ago, it was you could really just get by knowing what a subline was, and that was kind of it.
Two final questions, and then I always like to end our episodes with some fun questions. But two final questions on kind of the hiring and the market. One is, as a recruitment firm, I'm always curious how important or how critical is kind of mentoring when it comes to obviously those that are younger and looking to grow into the space. But as a recruitment firm, I mean, how much mentoring do you see? Is it a kind of a shown to health of the market? If you see a lot more mentoring, like, where does mentoring fall within this?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, so go ahead, you go, James.
yeah. Thanks, Rory. I was going to say, because actually it's a topical point, Todd. I sat on a panel a couple of months ago talking about this with the next generation of fund finance professionals. And when we talk about mentoring, you have official mentor pathways with trade bodies, whether that's internal and so forth. But the one thing we're seeing in fund finance at the moment is a lot of informal mentoring, shall we say, where it's not prescribed, but it is reciprocated. throughout the industry, and individuals see the value in what they're doing. So the more senior individuals see the value, and of course, the more junior, the mentees, get all of that insight and those values and so on. And it goes back to the whole point about fund finance being that community, that tight knit group, who are willing one another to succeed. Um, so there's a lot that goes on, mentoring formally and informally, and that's really positive to see. Rory, I don't know if you wanted to add anything on that.
Yeah, I mean, my view was simply to that question was yes, it does say recruitment on the tin for Brickfield, but I would see ourselves more as a consultant, a career development agency. We're mentors as well for people who haven't made those transitions from one firm to another to ultimately to better their own experience, to get exposure to more products or a more senior role or a more dynamic firm where they may have more involvement or make more impact. So I would see us more as matchmakers within the fund finance industry than actually the so-called branded recruitment, because we only focus on fund finance. We speak fund finance, and we know exactly what opportunities are out there from a very broad perspective. So that's kind of our approach to it. It's just unfortunately the recruitment label has to come along with it, so people know what we do.
And I'll just add anecdotally, I think fund finance, more than maybe some of the other markets that we even cover here at Deal Catalyst, there is that sense of I'll give you time, I'll give you my thoughts if you need to learn something. Like there's very much availability from a lot of
Mm,
senior folks in the fund
mhm,
finance market that I've seen and even talked
mhm.
to more than I've seen maybe across some of the other areas. Final question on kind of our formal conversation here, and then some fun. Is there any particular development or developments that you think could have the biggest impact on hiring, say, the next 3 to 5 years?
Rory?
Yeah, tricky one. I mean, the question is developments. It's around AI. I would have thought anything else that probably on the tip of everyone's tongue is where does that leave junior individuals that are coming in to do that in those entry
Yeah,
level positions that could AI potentially could replace. Um, so that's a question to be asked, what that means, but that's just not fun for that's every industry
yeah.
facing that. And then just developments really just again around products and intersections with other markets. Does fund finance get swallowed up by leverage finance and securitization? It just becomes one thing. Is it the other thing around? Do we take parts of that market and call it and rebrand it as fund finance? So we're definitely in an intersection here to see what does fund finance mean in 5 years' time? What products are out there? And is Subline still the talk of the town or the major thing, or has NAV somehow really developed and taken on this new product in the space to replace that? Who knows? But I think AI, from my view, is that question. But that's kind of down to firms
Yeah.
deciding how they're going to be using that rather than us. We are here to support what the market needs when it comes to human resource talent, and only time will tell what that all means for everyone else.
My I don't want to call it a prediction, but my thoughts on over the next 5 years and beyond, probably has to be around leadership or that growth pathway to the next leaders within fund finance. And will there be gaps? And if there are gaps, are there individuals ready to fill those gaps and assume those leadership positions? I think that's something that's going to be very interesting over the next few years. And as Rory's alluded to, where Brickfield can really come into play as well is once those needs are identified, coming back to how we know the market, how we understand it, how we communicate to the market as well to be able to fill the roles that are required.
So it was like to end every episode with a little fun. So I'll go Rory and then James on this first one. Favorite sports team? If you don't really watch sports, then hobby.
Well, I'd say my favorite hobby's got to be at the moment probably surfing. Just getting out in the waves, anything out of nature, really. I'm very an outdoors person, originally from New Zealand, so yeah, anything to do with getting out, fresh air, nature. But surfing is the number one hobby at the moment.
Very nice.
And quite different to surfing. I'll go favorite sports team is 100% Luton Town Football Club, that you may or may not have seen in the 23-24 season, graced the Premier League, and then slip back down to our lowly mid-tier English game that we know and love.
One surprising thing about yourself, and James, you can lead this one off.
Oh well, without the irony of coming across as super English here is back in my youthful days. I used to play darts at quite a competitive level, and have been known to grace a few tournaments around the UK as well. So
Interesting.
if anybody fancies a game, whether that's in Vegas for the Deal Catalyst Fund Finance West, or in London, you know where to find me.
What about you, Rory?
I would say, even though with my short little legs, able to summit Mont Blanc in Kilimanjaro over my time. So I
Wow.
enjoy an adventure like that. But you probably wouldn't put me down for a mountaineering person at all. But any challenge I'll take on.
One book you'd recommend reading, Rory, you first.
The How to Guide to Fund Finance by the Brickfield. Absolutely.
There you go.
Back to front. That's Christmas presents already all wrapped up.
James?
Uh, yeah, well, I feel under pressure to say that too as well. But I won't. One book I've just finished reading is called A Red Rag to a Bull: How to Farm in an Urban Age.
Hmm,
I think it's a fantastic intersection that we're at the moment, as far as sort of humanity goes, is farming against everything we do at the minute and how we produce our food and so forth. So that was a great book.
interesting. Most exciting part of your job? James, go ahead.
I'm sure you've heard this answer a lot, so apologies, but I would say you never know what's going to be on your desk at that morning you wake up. The variety that we see come across Brickfield's inbox is tremendous, and we love to connect with people with their different experiences, different thought processes, requirements, and needs. So that excitement of opening up your laptop and seeing what's in your inbox and going, wow, this is a new challenge.
Rory, what about you?
I would say, and it's always, I think, always been this is actually making a difference in someone's life. You move someone who's stuck in a rut or is not liking what they're doing, or they just want to better themselves, or whatever that may be, and you present to them that opportunity that ticks all the boxes because you listen, and you advise, and you ask them to be patient, and you promise that you'll come back around and deliver what they're looking for. And then you make that phone call and you go, I know exactly what you're looking for. I found it. And it matches up. They both love it. The client and the candidate match up. And then you get that genuine response, that email, that phone call, that thank you note to say, thanks, you made a difference, you listened. And I think that means a lot.
Agreed. That's a
Mm.
good answer. Both are actually good answers. I haven't heard, at least stylistically, those types of answers. So those were good. And then final question I always ask: one prediction for the next 12 months. Rory, you can lead us off.
Oh, I'm not too sure. I mean, the market's just going to continue to grow, I assume. I mean, from a market point of view, I don't see us hitting anything as of yet. I can see what's down the line. I know what people are planning within the market for growth. So I continue a bit of the same as what we're seeing now. Um, but new players in the space, creating new opportunities for people.
Yeah,
James?
Did you want a prediction from fund finance world, or
It could be anything. People have done Super Bowl predictions and American football or World Cup predictions, but I mean they
yeah,
tend to be closer to the market. But whatever is good. It's a fun question. So
it's a great question. Andy Burnham will probably still be Prime Minister in 12 months' time of the United Kingdom. But or definitely put £100 on Luton to be promoted this season. I think our chances are good. But otherwise, I'll echo Rory's comments. The market continues to be ambitious and continues to drive innovation, and that means our job in the talent space will continue to thrive. And I'm sure we'll be kept busy.
well, Rory, James, thank you very much for the time. Before we go, how can people find you if they want to connect with you? How can they do that?
Absolutely. Very simply, website brickfieldrecruitment.com. Send us a message. We respond within 24 hours. We get back to you. And then also LinkedIn, Rory Smith, James Strode, LinkedIn. We're there, and we're around, so you'll find us. That's fine. It's not that hard in this space.
And we will be doing a panel with them at Fund Finance West, so stay tuned for more
true.
details on that. So James, Rory, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. And thank you as always to the audience. See you next time.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Credit Clubhouse podcast. Credit Clubhouse is brought to you by Deal Catalyst, the leading capital markets events and market intelligence company. For more information on Deal Catalyst events, surveys, and a whole lot more, please head to www.dealcatalyst.io. Thanks for listening. Until next time.